Welcome to today's deep dive.
Oh, it's going to be a good one.
We're diving into the world of, well, how females compete in the animal kingdom.
Fascinating stuff.
It is. And, we'll be looking at chapter 7 from Lucy Cooke's book, Bitch. It really kind of, churns those Darwinian ideas about sexual selection on their head.
You know, the whole survival of the fittest thing, males battling it out.
Exactly. And, we're going to be talking about how females compete. And it's not always, it's not always what you think.
Definitely not. And it really shows how that competition has shaped evolution in some pretty surprising ways.
Yeah. For so long, science was really focused on male competition, viewing females as, just passive.
Yeah, like they're just there, waiting around.
Exactly. But Cooke is really challenging that. She's revealing this whole world of power struggles between females. That's every bit as complex and influential as anything the males are doing.
And I think to really understand this shift, we got to kind of touch on what Darwin got right. I mean, he wasn't totally wrong.
No, not at all. I mean, he recognized that competition is at the heart of evolution.
Right. But he mostly focused on males competing for mates to explain the development of, like antlers or peacock feathers and all those elaborate treats.
But what about when females have those traits? Darwin kind of dismissed it as just inherited from the males.
Yeah, like it didn't have any real purpose for the females themselves.
Exactly. And that's where Darwin's blind spot comes in.
He was so focused on males fighting for mates that he missed this bigger picture of, competition for resources, status, everything. Survival, basically.
Right. And that's where Cooke comes in, highlighting that females, they compete for all those things too, even if it's not always so obvious.
Not at all. So Cooke starts things off with a scene that I think would have made Darwin scratch his head. Female tabai antelopes in Africa.
Oh, yeah, I remember this.
They're literally fighting each other for access to the top males.
Yeah. It's not just some little shoving match either. These ladies are locking horns to get to the best sperm.
What's interesting here is that it challenges this classic assumption that, males have endless sperm, always ready to go.
Right.
Research by Jacob Bro-Jorgensen shows that during taupe breeding season, which is very short and intense, the males actually have a limited supply of sperm.
Oh, wow. So the females are the ones driving the competition.
Exactly. And the males, they actually become choosier. They start opting to mate with females they haven't encountered before, which is pretty wild. It completely flips traditional sexual selection upside down.
Amazing how one little detail, like limited sperm, changes the whole power dynamic.
Totally.
It makes you wonder if this kind of female-driven competition is happening more than we realize, especially in species where there's like a shortage of desirable males or something.
Oh, absolutely. And Cooke suggests that. She points to research on gorillas where high-ranking females, they engage in non-conceptive sex with the silverback.
Oh, wow, to deplete his sperm.
Exactly. To leave less for their rivals.
So it's like strategic sabotage.
Pretty much, like sperm warfare.
I love it. But, this focus on physical competition, that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, yeah. There's so much more.
So let's talk about birdsong.
Okay.
It's always been seen as a male thing.
Right. Males sing to attract females. Simple as that.
But Cooke brings in this work by Naomi Langmore, who found that, most female songbirds actually do sing. And it's not just about attracting mates either.
Oh, definitely not. Langmore's research shows that females use their songs for all sorts of things, like defending territory, competing for resources, even luring males away from other females.
Yeah, it's like we've been looking at birdsong with these blinders on and only seeing half the picture.
Exactly.
And it's not just about overlooking females either. It's also a geographical thing, I think. Most early research on birdsong was done in Europe and North America. But Langmore's work was, a lot of it was in Australia, the tropics.
Uh-huh.
And it suggests that female birdsong might be the original state. Yeah. Females in those areas are more vocal because the breeding seasons are longer. There's year-round territory defense and things like that.
So it kind of flips the script on, who's really evolving here.
Right. And that brings us to this key point. Darwin's theory of sexual selection. It might not be broad enough, to capture all this complexity.
Yeah, Langmore argues that we need to consider competition for more than just mating. We need to look at how individuals compete for, anything that gives them an advantage.
like resources and territory and social status.
All that. And that's where the idea of social selection comes in.
Okay.
It's a concept that was proposed by Mary Jane West Eberhard, and it basically encompasses all these different forms of competition, not just the ones directly related to attracting a mate.
So it's not just about males battling for females. It's about this whole web of competition between and amongst males and females and how that drives the evolution of all these different traits and behaviors. And speaking of competition, it brings us to another example of female power, the pecking order.
Oh, yeah. We all know the phrase.
But did you know it was first observed in chickens?
That's right. This Norwegian scientist, Thorleif Schjelderup Ebbe, he was fascinated by chickens, and he noticed that the females established a very clear hierarchy, this pecking order that determined everything, who got to eat first, the best nesting spots, who basically ruled the roost.
It's pretty intense for a bunch of chickens. But Cooke points out that this whole hierarchy thing isn't just for the birds. It's common in tons of social animals, including primates.
Oh, yeah. And it can have a huge impact on, who gets to reproduce successfully.
Think about savanna baboons, for instance.
Okay.
The high-ranking females, they get first dibs on food and better protection for their babies. But lower-ranking females, they're constantly stressed and harassed, which actually can affect their ability to get pregnant.
It's like this subtle but powerful form of competition.
Right. And it's not always about brute force either. Cooke highlights how female primates use all these clever tactics. They form alliances, trade favors like grooming and sharing food, even manipulate others to secure their spot and protect their young.
It's like a soap opera, but with monkeys.
I know. And speaking of drama, Cooke takes us into the world of meerkats.
Oh, those cute little guys.
Right. But they've got this surprisingly dark side. They have this cooperative breeding system, but it's basically a dictatorship ruled by one dominant female.
The queen.
Exactly. And it really highlights how sometimes cooperation in the animal kingdom can be pretty brutal.
Definitely.
Okay, so here's where things get really interesting. Meerkats live in these harsh desert environments, so cooperation is essential for survival.
Right.
But for the subordinate females, it comes at a price. They're basically forced into helping the dominant female raise her pups, while their own chances of having babies are totally shut down.
That's rough.
I know. And the dominant female, the queen, uses a combination of intimidation and just straight-up aggression to stay in control.
Yeah.
She'll kick out, attack, even kill any females that challenge her.
Wow.
Yeah. And if one of the subordinate females does manage to, sneak in a pregnancy...
What happened?
Well, let's just say those pups usually don't last long. The queen will often kill them, sometimes even eat them, and then make the mother help raise her own offspring.
Oh, my God.
It's harsh, but it shows how far females will go to pass on their genes, when resources are scarce.
That makes sense in a way.
And the Kalahari Desert where they live, that is about as tough as it gets. So this extreme cooperation, even though it seems so twisted, might be the only way to survive.
It's like survival of the fittest taken to a whole new level.
Right. And then Cooke takes this idea of cooperative breeding to the extreme with eusocial insects, like termites and ants. These societies are basically ruled by queens who just pump out eggs while everyone else is a sterile worker.
Yeah. All supporting the queen's reproductive dominance.
Exactly. And it's not just insects either. Cooke introduces us to the naked mole rat, which is the only mammal that has evolved a truly eusocial system.
Naked mole rats. I mean, what a creature.
They live in these underground colonies. Hundreds of individuals, all controlled by a single queen who prevents any other female from breeding.
So wait, how does she do that?
Well, Cooke describes how these queens use strength, chemical signals, and manipulation of their worker ants to basically secure their power.
So it's like a tiny dictatorship.
Pretty much. And it's not just in the insect world either. Cooke points to examples in mammals where females are clashing for dominance, and those clashes can be pretty intense.
Oh, bad.
Have you ever seen spotted hyenas?
I mean, I've seen them in documentaries and stuff.
So, the females are larger and more aggressive than the males.
They are.
And they run the show. The top female, she gets the best access to food, chooses her mates. It's wild.
It definitely challenges our typical ideas about gender role.
It does. And Cooke really stresses the importance of understanding these female-dominated societies, not just as, these weird anomalies, but as insights into all the different social structures and reproductive strategies that have evolved.
It's like we're finally piecing together this complete picture of evolution, realizing that females have been driving things all along.
Absolutely. And, well, this deep dive is just getting started. In part 2, we're going to dig into some of the fascinating adaptations and strategies that females use to compete.
Oh, can't wait.
And what all that can tell us about, well, us, humans.
Welcome back.
Oh, yeah, we're talking about how females are just as driven as males when it comes to competition, even if it's not as obvious.
Yeah, it's like we were saying before the break. We've been handed this new lens to view the natural world with.
Totally. And the more we look, the more we realize that that competition isn't just about brute strength.
Yeah.
Or fighting for mates.
Right. It's about securing any advantage that helps you survive and pass on those genes.
And Cooke provides a ton of examples that highlight just how diverse and strategic female competition can be.
Oh, absolutely. She dives into how females use seemingly ornamental traits in ways Darwin never even imagined.
Oh, okay. Give me an example. What kind of traits are we talking about?
Well, think about those bright colors you often see in birds,
Yeah.
We tend to assume those are all about attracting a mate.
Right.
But Cooke points to these studies on blue tits where females with brighter plumage actually have an edge when it comes to competing for nesting cavities.
Ah, so it's like they're showing off their real estate.
Exactly. It's like having the best real estate in the bird world.
And that brighter blue breastplate, it's like, back off, this prime spot is mine.
Exactly. Those bright colors aren't just about attracting a mate. They're also a signal of, strength and competitive ability to other females.
Wow.
And this pattern pops up in other species, too. Cooke talks about female hummingbirds using their iridescent throat feathers to intimidate rivals for nectar sources.
I mean, it makes sense.
Right. And even female dragonflies using their bright colors to signal to males that they're already carrying eggs.
Oh, interesting. So the males don't waste time courting them.
Right. It's all about efficiency.
So these seemingly decorative traits actually serve a very practical purpose in the world of female competition.
Exactly. And it highlights the fact that female competition isn't always about, direct confrontation. It can be about subtle signaling, forming strategic alliances, and even manipulating the behavior of others to get what you want.
It's like this constant game of strategy.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just limited to the animal kingdom either.
Wait, really?
Oh, yeah. Cooke even brings up how plants get in on the action.
Plants, come on.
Oh, yeah. Cooke points out that that even female plants compete, especially when it comes to attracting pollinators,
Okay.
They might produce more attractive flowers, release pollen at specific times, or even position their flowers in a way that gives them an advantage over their rivals.
So even in the plant world, it's all about outsmarting the competition.
Exactly. It's a reminder that competition is woven into life itself, and females have evolved just as many clever strategies as males to come out on top.
It's incredible. I love it.
Yeah, and if you think plants are strategic, wait till you hear what Cooke has to say about parasites.
Oh, parasites. Okay, I'm intrigued. I mean, parasites already seem like masters of manipulation.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine what kind of competitive shenanigans they get up to.
Oh, prepare to have your mind blown. Cooke takes us into the world of parasites where female competition gets really bizarre and frankly a bit gruesome.
Okay.
She talks about this parasitic worm that lives inside the California killifish.
Oh, I've heard of those.
The female worm basically hijacks the fish's brain.
What?
Yeah, it makes it behave in a way that makes it more likely to get eaten by a bird, which is, the worm's next host in its life cycle.
So the female worm is essentially driving the fish to its death just to ensure her offspring survive.
It's pretty wild. It's a chilling example of how parasites manipulate their hosts, and in this case, it's the female worm orchestrating the whole deadly drama.
Wow.
And that's not all. Cooke also discusses how female parasites often compete with each other inside a host.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, using all sorts of tactics to, hog resources and maximize their reproductive output.
That's like a whole microscopic battle happening inside the host.
Exactly. She describes a species of parasitic wasp that lays its eggs inside caterpillars.
Okay, I've heard of this.
But here's the kicker. the female wasps inject a virus along with their eggs to suppress the caterpillar's immune system,
Oh, wow.
making it easier for their larvae to develop. But each female injects a different strain of the virus, creating this arms race within the host as their offspring compete for resources.
That is insane. It's like a microscopic soap opera playing out inside that poor caterpillar.
And these intricate power dynamics aren't limited to the microscopic world. Cooke takes us into the realm of, insect societies where female competition reaches epic proportions.
Right. Like ants, bees, and wasps.
Exactly, where those massive colonies are often ruled by powerful queens.
I remember reading about queen ants actually fighting to the death for control of the colony.
Yeah.
It's like Game of Thrones, but with way more ants.
Exactly. Cooke describes how these queens use a combination of physical strength, chemical signals, and manipulation of their worker ants to, secure their power and ensure their line continues.
And it's not just in the insect world either, right?
Right.
Cooke also points to examples in mammals where females clash for dominance.
Oh, yeah, and those clashes can be pretty intense.
I've always been fascinated by spotted hyenas. The females are larger and more aggressive than the males.
Yeah, they are.
And they run the show. The top female has the best access to food and gets to choose her mates. It really challenges those, typical ideas about gender roles.
Absolutely. And Cooke stresses the importance of understanding these female-dominated societies, not just as interesting anomalies, but as essential insights into, all the array of social structures and reproductive strategies that have evolved.
It's like we're finally seeing the complete picture of evolution, realizing that females have been driving the action all along.
And not just in the ways we initially thought.
This has been a real eye-opener so far, but before we wrap things up, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned and consider what it all means for us, as humans. In the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore some of the broader implications of Cooke's work and how understanding female competition in the animal world can actually shed light on human behavior and society. Welcome back to our deep dive into female competition. We've been talking about Lucy Cooke's book, Bitch, and it's really changed how I think about evolution, and the role females play.
It's been pretty eye-opening.
Right.
We've seen how females compete for everything, from sperm to nesting sites, and how they use all those subtle signals and manipulative tactics to get ahead.
It's amazing how Cooke just dismantles that whole idea that females are passive, like they're just sitting on the sidelines.
Totally. It's like we finally have permission to see the whole picture, to recognize that, that females are just as driven as males.
And just as strategic.
And just as capable of shaping evolution.
Absolutely. And that's not just, some interesting scientific fact.
Not at all.
It really makes you think about how we view ourselves.
Yeah.
How we understand gender roles.
Yeah.
And how we interpret behavior in both humans and in animals.
Right.
And that's what I think is so cool about Cooke's work. She's not afraid to tackle those big questions.
Yeah.
Like why are women often stereotyped as being less competitive than men? Is it nature? Is it nurture? Or some combination of both?
Right. And how do those cultural norms and expectations shape, how we perceive female ambition and assertiveness?
It's like those stereotypes they're so ingrained in society.
Totally.
It's easy to think certain behaviors are just inherently male or female. But Cooke really challenges that.
She does. She argues that a lot of those stereotypes come from this outdated and often inaccurate view of what's considered natural.
For men and women.
Exactly. Historically, women have often been, relegated to the domestic sphere, taking care of children, doing household duties, things like that. But Cooke points out that doesn't mean women aren't competitive.
Right. It just means that their competition might have, played out in different ways.
Exactly. So the competition was always there. It just wasn't as obvious.
Like those big flashy displays of male aggression that we tend to focus on.
Right. And Cooke provides tons of examples of how women throughout history have competed for resources, status, influence within their families, communities, all that.
And even today, when women have more access to education, to jobs, to political power, those stereotypes are still there.
Yeah, it's like we still can't fully accept the idea that women can be ambitious and assertive,
Right.
without being labeled as unfeminine or stepping outside of their prescribed roles.
Exactly. And Cooke pushes back against that. She reminds us that female ambition, assertiveness, even those traits that we call aggression, They're not inherently unnatural. They're just expressions of that same drive for success and survival. That exists in all living things.
It's a really powerful message, especially now when women are still fighting for equality.
Cooke's book, it's like this call to action.
It is.
She wants us to embrace this more nuanced understanding of gender and behavior, one that recognizes the full spectrum of human potential, regardless of whether someone is male or female.
It's about moving beyond that idea that the battle of the sexes is, a zero-sum game.
Right.
Instead, it's this complex dance of cooperation, competition, adaptation. It's shaped our evolution, and it continues to influence our lives today.
It's a beautiful way to put it. So as we wrap up our deep dive, what are some takeaways? What can we carry with us from this?
Well, I think the biggest thing is to challenge those assumptions.
Right.
Don't accept those simple narratives about gender roles, whether we're talking about the animal kingdom or our own societies.
Be curious. Ask questions. Dig deeper.
Exactly. And recognize that competition, it's not a bad thing.
No, it's a powerful force that drives innovation and progress.
Yeah.
And
finally, it's about celebrating diversity.
Oh, I love that.
Embrace all the ways there are to be successful, to compete, to contribute to life itself.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
So to our listeners, as you navigate your own world, keep your eyes open, stay curious, and don't be afraid to challenge those assumptions. The world's full of surprises.
That's all for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, keep exploring.